I know you have used the Florida Marlins as an example, and I would say I remember when you and your dad purchased the team, and you gave the roster an additional year. We were loaded, and we didn't make it with that roster, and that's when a lot of trades were conducted. But if you look at the Florida scenario, they've been horrible all these years, then all of a sudden they put that great team together, then Huizenga dismantled that team, they went for another duration of years, more than 5 years, and then they won it again. If we'd have kept Lee and Martinez, you exercise those options, you go out and add another pitcher or two, and then see, because I think the Indians could have legitimately contended with those guys next year. Was that considered?
No, not the. As I pieced together what you said there, that what we could not have done. You know, whether that constitutes being cheap or not is up to you and your viewers. But what we made very clear to Mark and Chris and the rest of the baseball staff is we can keep this together. But we can't add anything. I mean, you don't when you make financial projections, you don't know for certain in our game because there are a lot of variables. But we were on a course where after losing, well, we probably would have lost around $25 million this year, and we would have lost more probably into the 30s next year without adding anybody. That would put us, you know, as spending goes by owners, that probably would have put us at the top. And that's not a list you really want to be on. But reality, that's what owner spending is, and we would have been at the top, and that's not good spending. That makes us financially unstable. It creates a number of issues, which would have led, we think, to many, many years of decline. We made it very clear to our people we could not, in that environment, the last thing we could do is go out and get it and spend money on a free agent.
But Paul, you must realize that how angry the fans are, and I hate to hear it. You know, I grew up on the north side of Chicago. I tell the fans all the time, Cubs were a perennial last place team. I love going to the ballpark, but I'm in the minority. I'm a purist. I'm a traditionalist. I'd go and watch the last place Cubs and score the game. I'd go to 30, 40 games a season and support my last place team. But you must understand that the fans, how are you going to generate revenue if attendance is the biggest way to do so when it's a AAA product? Hopefully not, but I mean, you got a bunch of AAA guys that you're elevating to the majors.
Well, first of all, I don't think it will be a AAA product. I went through a list of guys that will be on the team next year, and they'll be supplemented by guys who are coming out of AAA, but we think many of them will be major league ready, guys like Laporta and Crow is spending time up here now. We think Santana will be a catcher, if not this year, next year, the year after. Marcel, I mean, there's a long list of guys that we don't think are AAA players. We think they're major leaguers, and their time is about to come. But with respect to the fans, yes, we understood that they would be angry, and I've certainly been told, informed by them, they are angry, and I get that, I understand that. What I hope they might appreciate, they won't necessarily like, is if we took the other course and kept Lee and Martinez, they weren't going to be happy with us next year anyways, unless the miracle happened and we competed at a high level with those guys. That would only put off their unhappiness a year or so, because we couldn't have sustained whatever we achieved next year. We couldn't sustain, because there's no way. Even if we were successful, we know the range of attendance now. We saw what happened in 2007 when we had the best record in Major League Baseball. We 2.2 million is what we did. So we have a good sense of what can happen when things go well financially.
Excuse me, yeah. Isn't attendance based on what the team's success or lack of it the previous year, certainly season ticket sales?
Yes, clearly there's a bump afterwards, and we didn't get much of a bump in 2008, right. Although the team didn't help us much on that front either because of the way it played in the first half of 2008. But nonetheless, the important thing is we know what the window is, what can happen financially if we succeed. And we knew that even if we succeeded next year, there's no way that we could replace in value meaning talent on the field, Lee, Martinez, Westbrook, and possibly Woods, because those were the four that are likely to have been free agents at that period of time. Yet we had some young guys coming up, position players, but when we looked at our system, we didn't have the pitching that we felt was enough to keep this team competitive, which is obviously the focus of what we did with these trades.
Now, certainly, in fairness to the organization, it's bad luck giving Hafner and Westbrook the contracts that they received and getting hurt. Nobody's God. Nobody can predict that. So you have said that you are going to evaluate Eric Wedge's position at the end of the year. Are you also going to evaluate Shapiro?
No, Mark's our GM. Well, let me back up. That doesn't mean we're not going to, work with him. So how do we get better? What can you do better, Mark? I mean, Mark will lead the charge on that front, in the sense of they're constantly looking at themselves, evaluating themselves, determining how can we be better. And he does that on a daily basis and will continue to do that. But it is not on the table that whether Mark is going to be our GM or not. He is our GM and will continue to be so.
Well, then, do you look at, under the Shapiro Wedge leadership, we have one playoff appearance, only 2 seasons above 500, and our record in one-run games under Eric is less than to be desired.
Okay, I haven't studied that last point about one-run games, so I can't address that. But Mark and Eric, in essence, took over. Mark took over a year before Eric came on board. And Mark inherited a very bad situation in terms of what was happening within the franchise. It was some of the things we talked about earlier in terms of what was happening to the team and the economy were all coalescing at that time, where we needed to do what we did, and that was to tear it down. And that was a complete tear down, which is different than what we're doing right now. But Mark inherited that. So in 2003, if you want to call Mark and Eric a team, when that team was formed in 2003, that was an expansion team. That was the AAA and has-beens that were that you spoke to earlier. That was that kind of team. So it was reasonable to look to them and say it's going to be a few years before they can be competitive. And as we know, they became competitive in 2005. Actually, arguably a little bit in 2004. We had a little run in August where we were just an out or two away from being in first place in August, which was a tremendous accomplishment. But clearly we achieved competitiveness in 2005. And if you look at the last 4 seasons prior to this year, you've got the 2005 season where we should have been in the playoffs. 93 wins, should have been in the playoffs. We blew it last week, but that doesn't take away from a very good season. 2006, we weren't very good. I'm not quite sure why, but we weren't good. 2007, best team in baseball, should have won the World Series. And last year, 500 team, first half terrible, second half a very good team. So you take that 4 years is really the body of work. That's pretty good work for any franchise. You look at we were 5th in the American League in number of wins during that period of time. Got further in the playoffs than the Yankees did. Got further in the playoffs than the Twins did. Have ever done, really, in this last decade.
Twins have never made it to the World Series.
And haven't made it in the era we're talking about.
Right.
Oakland, all those teams. They accomplished a lot. That window, it sure would have been nice if they'd won the World Series in 2007, and in 2005 they should have gotten the playoffs, and who knew what would happen then.
Once you get there.
But what the reality is, they put the franchise in a position to win it all, and then it's up to the players. Really, they play the game. You got the Cy Young Award winner on the mound.
I agree with that. The players have to accept a major responsibility for this season too. I think any intelligent fan would have to, especially with the money that they make in this day and age.